The term bighorn is quite ambiguous. It can refer to sheep with large horns. It can refer to the mountains in which those sheep graze. It can refer to the river that emerges from those mountains, passing through a county and a town of that name in Wyoming and a county and a town of that name in Montana. But to me, bighorn always means the latter, the town, my hometown, that stood at the mouth of the Bighorn River as it flows into the much larger Yellowstone. I say it stood there, and it will become clear why I do not say it stands there. Some years the Yellowstone would run high, some years the Bighorn would run high, and sometimes both rivers would run high. In all of these cases, Bighorn would get socked. The flooding was particularly bad in the years 1906, when the course of the Bighorn River actually shifted, and 1978. In the end, though, what did Bighorn in was not water, but fire. James Stewart visited here in 1863 and marked out plots for the various members of his party. He chose the high ground upriver on the Yellowstone and the Bighorn as much for military purposes. The next year, President Abraham Lincoln created the territory of Montana, and in December of 1864, the first legislative assembly incorporated 20 cities. They named in the law the chief members of Stewart's expedition as the corporation for Bighorn Town. Quote, that S.T. Hauser, H.A. Bell, J.N. York, John Vanderbilt, Drew Underwood, James Hauxhurst, A.S. Blake, their legal associates and successors, be, and that they are hereby created, a body politic and corporate by the name and style of Bighorn Town Association, and by that name and style are hereby invested with power and authority to hold, possess, occupy, and enjoy for the purpose of a town the premises situated in Bighorn County, embracing an area of 320 acres, more or less. On the map of the territory of Montana, which the legislature produced, there stands only one city on the entire Yellowstone River Valley called Bighorn City. There is no Billings, there is no Miles City, there is no Livingston, there is no Glendive, there is only Bighorn, strategically located at the confluence of two great rivers. At the end of the Indian Wars in 1877, 700 Crow Indian teepees stood at Bighorn City to celebrate. With peace established, the Northern Pacific Railroad passed through Bighorn, Montana, heading west to the Pacific and east to Minneapolis. And Bighorn acquired a depot with a Western Union telegraph office, and a small band of railroad workers were placed there in order to keep up the rails. But the territory was actually on the Crow Reservation, and so was not opened for homesteading until 1906. In 1912, the real estate wizard Peter Yegan of Billings developed Bighorn City and laid out proper lots and streets for it. But Bighorn got a start as a town a little too late. There was a boost that came from US Highway 10 coming through Bighorn Town and paving over Sitting Bull Avenue, with cars passing east and west right at the storefronts, there were then 2 gasoline stations opened by the 1940s, and there was a grocery store in the middle with a gas station in front, and then another hardware store to the right. If it were a color photograph, we would see there was a certain European flavor to the color design of Bighorn Town, which made it very interesting. In 1953, the burning of Bighorn began. On July 27th that year, my father was released from the hospital after having his appendix removed, and we arrived to learn that the Bighorn store in the middle of the picture was burning. We raced down, and the building had already collapsed by the time we got there, and I stood there looking at the destruction of that building, and I learned to hate destruction of all kinds on that day. This aspect of my character, the hatred of destruction, belongs to the 27th of July, 1953, when I was only 5 years old. I hated what was happening to that building. We were relieved that Bud and Mary Reynolds, who lived in the basement to run the store, had escaped intact with their checkbook. Unfortunately, their small dog died in the fire. Fires are often especially fatal to dogs. They don't run from flame the way most animals do. Bud and Mary moved to the building on the left-hand side of the picture and opened a news store and post office there. But Bighorn was really never quite the same with that hole in the middle of it. They did roof over the basement, and the Bellis family lived there for a number of years. But architecturally, it broke up the unity of the town. You had one set of buildings to the left and one to the right, like a set of teeth with a gap in the middle. About 5 years later, we narrowly averted another conflagration when old man Art Brown, who was blind, started a fire in his backyard, and it got out of control. The smoke wafted over to the schoolhouse nearby, and the children, we children, formed a fire brigade and carried buckets of water from the school pump. Mr. Brown had no running water at his house. He got all his water from the school pump anyway, so that was the only place we could get anything to fight the fire with. And we, the grade school brigade, successfully extinguished the yard fire and saved the town from another great misfortune. 60 years after the fire that burned down the grocery store that stood to the left, I stopped by and photographed the standing remains of the mercantile building, the hardware store. But I returned a month later to find this. The building had been burned to the ground in a controlled fire, and it was the end of Bighorn, Montana. 60 years before, I had seen the companion building reduced to this condition, and now I was here to see this. My life was framed by 2 great fires, which between the 2 of them destroyed the entire storefronts of Bighorn Town. I had been in denial for many years about the fact that my hometown had become a ghost town, but as I looked into these ashes, I could persist in my denial no longer. And when I see Bighorn listed among the 100 ghost towns of the state of Montana, I accept. We are not here to build an earthly kingdom, but to build a home that lasts while it is needed, and appreciate it while we have it, and go on to build new homes and keep the human spirit alive. And if there is a fork in the road and it says, Bighorn, turn left, I will be tempted to want to go into the past for reminiscence. But I know that the road leads forward and not to the left, because there is a bigger horn, a better horn, a great horn waiting for us at the end of the trail. See you there.